This is a demonstration of Crimson Workflow, a software application for onlining digital cinema footage. This video is going to move very fast, and that's because it's not a training video. It's simply designed to demonstrate the software. We're going to start by going into Final Cut Pro and opening up a timeline. What you're seeing here is a timeline based on footage shot with a red digital cinema camera. The clips in the timeline are ProRes proxies transcoded from R3D reference proxies generated by the camera. I'm going to let it play through so that you can see where the cuts happen in this sequence.
Coming over. Is the saddest experience you'll ever know. Yes, it's the saddest experience you'll ever know. Because one is the loneliest number that you'll ever do. One is the loneliest number.
Okay, so to get this timeline out of Final Cut Pro, what we're going to do is we're going to go Export XML, and within that we're going to just use the standard settings, and in this case I'm going to save this on my desktop. So there it goes, and I'll just hide Final Cut Pro, and there it is. There's an XML file called Crimson Demo. So at this point I'm going to open up Crimson, and I'm going to go choose source sequence, and I'm going to choose that XML file, and suddenly I have a list of all the clips from my movie, and I need to first find the original R3D files that are referenced by the proxies. So I'm looking on my FireWire drive here, and I'm going to select two folders I think they might be in. I have a list of folders, and I hit match, and I found my R3Ds. I'm using what's called a cowboy intermediate, which is essentially a way of cutting your negative before you run it through the film to tape machine. So if you look in my folders under Crimson Workflow Intermediates, you can see I have a list of these what look to be R3D files. These are intermediates. They're links to the R3D files put in an order that Red Cine can understand them. And in the Red Cine tab, I'm just going to export an XML. And now you can see on my desktop there's a new XML file called CrimsonDemo-H.264.mov. So let me hide Crimson Workflow, and I'm going to go into Red Cine. Okay, here I am. First thing I do is I load all, and I look under Crimson Workflow Documents, Intermediates, and the name of my project, and there we go. There's our intermediates. I'm loading all the intermediates. There they are. Change my frame size, scale it down, and I can see that already I've loaded in some files, and they're already in the order that I had placed them in the sequence. Now at this point I'm going to open the XML file, which as I place it on the desktop, so I found it there on the desktop and I'm opening it up, and suddenly my cut points have all been inserted into my Red Cine project. And so now you can see I can play through this, and I can see in Red Cine the cut points are exactly where I placed them in Final Cut Pro. And just before, okay. So the point here is to be able to see our stuff and grade it in the context of how we shot it. So I got this shot here, it's a little bit too blue. So I'm going to spend some time trying to find a color temperature for it. So what we're seeing here is the ability to adjust colors and see clips in the context that we cut them in. At this point, I'm actually ready to output. So at this point, I can sort of set up my sequence. I want this to be a 1080p sequence, so I'm going to make it 1080p, and then another shot. I'm going to press all and scale everything to fit width. So there's a 2K 2:1 image. I'm sorry, 4K 2:1 image into 1080p timeline. And then under output, I'm first going to set my output path to the path that I had specified in Crimson, which happens to be, which can be anything I want. It's usually defaulted to this under Crimson Workflow Outputs, Crimson Demo, the name of my project. But for this demo, I'm just going to put it on the desktop. Okay, and change my file specification. And oh wait, I have to set the format before I can set this file specification. Then I'll set it again. And since all my other settings are good, I'm ready to render. And just so you feel like this is a real project and we're actually rendering, let's check out some YouTube videos for a minute.
Well, Ian!
Yeah, that's the only one. Judges! My name is Ian Bloom. Mine is Kempo Cody, Chief Instructor of Professor Mary Martin. My full will be clubs in too. Maybe we can start.
I hope you enjoyed that. I know I did. Okay, so we're back in Red Cine, and since we've rendered, we can just exit. And look on our desktop, we see that Red Cine's created a bunch of event folders. And each of these folders includes a QuickTime file that we created in Red Cine. So we'll open that one of them up and just take a look. And we can see that the in and out points of this actual clip are the same as our in and out points from Final Cut Pro. So now we're going to go back into Crimson, and our next task is to get things back into Final Cut Pro. Now I just want to mention that we could have done this using Redline instead of Red Cine, but in this case, for the purpose of the demo, we used Red Cine. Now I move things to the desktop, so I'm going to change my path to rendered clips to the desktop. And you can see that it's got a path to each one of my rendered files. And then since I made a 1080p sequence in Red Cine, I need to make a 1080p sequence for my Final Cut Pro round trip. So I have a nice preset for that, and now I'm going to hit Generate Round Trip XML. Now I can hide Crimson, and you can see on my desktop there's a new XML called Round Trip XML. So I'm going to open up Final Cut Pro, and I'm going to say Import XML, Round Trip XML. I'm going to say Override with settings from XML. Okay. And then I'm going to open up that sequence. And for some reason they're coming in with the audio needing to render, but it doesn't seem to take long to do that. You can see we're back in, cut points in the same place. Even our little crossfade on the end there is still there, and if we reveal in Finder, we can see Final Cut Pro is referencing our new file. Okay, so that's a very basic workflow that you can accomplish with Crimson, Final Cut Pro, and Red Cine.